Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Alpha Touring Challenge Season number 9. We are here for race number 7 here at the Nürburgring, the legendary, notorious Nürburgring. One of the most difficult and, frankly, probably the most difficult track in all of racing history. Drivers today will be experiencing the full length of this track, a whopping 15 miles that this track has to offer. It will be a doozy of a race as drivers get themselves onto the starting grid here for today's race. Qualifying, we unfortunately won't be able to cover here today. A little bit of a technical issue there, but we do have our starting lineup ready for us. Dan McFarlane, James Carr starting up in the front row, Logan McKenzie, Micah Hendricks in that second row, Raymond 2, Connor Roccatella in the third row, Francois Schink, Mike De Almeida in the fourth row, Matt Zepka, Dave Hernandez in the fifth row, Ian Bertolucci, Kurt Smith in the sixth row. Moving on down the grid, Eric Statzer, Luke Philippone, seventh row, Zach Perry, Mark Darnell in the eighth row, John Lazan, Damon Mitchell in the ninth row, Kevin Clark, Christian Ost in the 10th row, followed by Brian Sohn, David Bauer in the 11th row, Trevor Lambert, Auguste Blondel in our 12th row. And in the 13th row, we have Brian Saab and Randy Ayers. Rounding out the field here today is now the drivers just patiently awaiting for the green flag to drop here. Get themselves ready for the action. Now, folks, for those of you that are tuning in after the live showing of race number 6, you will have seen some great action there at Circuit of the Americas, so make sure you go back and check that out if you haven't seen that already. But this is going to be a little interesting to see how this race is going to pan out for drivers. A very long race that it will be. So here we go. Green flag drops in a slow start here for Dan McFarlane. Logan McKenzie almost getting right into the rear end of James Carr. Drivers all scrambling for position, 4 wide, nearly 4 wide. As they head off into turn number 1 now, drivers trying to get themselves into a bit of a groove here as best as they can before they get into the gnarly bit of this track. Now, excuse me, as I was trying to figure out how many turns we had exactly here, that got me a little distracted. But drivers still fighting for positions throughout this field, and we're starting to now get right into the nitty-gritty of this course, and this is where it all starts to get very, very narrow. Logan McKenzie able to take the lead here heading into the brunt of the Nürburgring. Drivers still stacking up single file, and this is where it is all going to be a challenge for every single driver here. If I recall correctly, it's something in the neighborhood of about like 150 something some odd turns. 152, I want to say, is the number that comes to my head, but I could very well be wrong here. Side by side coming into this very fast left-hander. But again, not a whole lot of room. And, oh, God, there it is. The first mistakes being made here. Drivers off into the wall. Eric Statzer, Damon Mitchell. Among some of the first here, we've already had a few. These drivers are just flying on through this course. Oh, this is going to get real dicey here between Trevor Lambert, Gus Blondel, Randy Ayers. Very close action here for the 20th place position. We can kind of see drivers all over just trying to keep themselves on the track, and it is going to be a long while before they see the end of this very long and very complex track. Just to kind of give everyone an idea of how complex this track really is, if you've never been on this track before, we're going to ride on board with James Carr, and we'll have the telemetry, the dashboard up on the right-hand side, so you can kind of see just how fast we're going, and a few other good tidbits here, such as what gear we are in. Now, I am not quite Jimmy Broadbent level of knowledge with this track. I have not raced literally hundreds, if not maybe even thousands of laps. Actually, no, Jimmy's definitely raced over thousands of laps of this of this track, but I will certainly do my best. Coming up here, he's going to have to slow up, I think, if I recall correctly. Right up to the tail here, as close as he can. They can hold it through here. Very, very good. Now they're going to come up to a sharp right-hander here, right at the end of this. Very good work from both drivers. And into a kind of like a bowl left. Getting right down into that bottom groove. And the one thing that I really love and appreciate about the iRacing service and this particular track is the attention to detail that was put into this track. And obviously, iRacing doing no more than what they typically do for every track, but given the size of this track and the sheer scale of the project that it was to fully scan this track, they did a really great job, and you can really get a great feeling of what this track is like in the real world counterpart of it. So, granted, obviously, the track is going to change in various parts. You know, some certain areas are going to get repaved and whatnot. They're going to get certain touch-ups here and there, but ultimately, the track remains pretty much one-to-one with what you would see out on the real world. So, that is always a great thing. That is really just an awesome thing to have in your tool belt as a sim racer, to be able to come into these tracks and just have that level of detail. And know that if one day you ever decided to head to Germany and head on the Nürburgring, you will know pretty certain where all the bumps are, where to go, and how and what to expect. I mean, other than just the physical forces of the car being applied to you, you pretty much got everything else from there. Connor Arcatello, Raymond 2. In a small fight for the 6th place position here at the moment. They're getting pretty close to the tail of this track. Oh boy. Connor Arcatello getting onto the high side of that right-hander there, or left-hander, excuse me. Unsettles the car. Raymond 2 taking advantage of that mistake. Moves up into the 6th place position. Meanwhile, a little further back, Kurt Smith, Ian Bertolucci side by side. Kurt Smith holding on to the 9th place position as Ian falls back behind Matt Zepka, Dave Hernandez, David Bauer. All in a single file groove just behind them. I love how you can just see the cars just bobbing away. 3 wide. And this portion of the track is where you can really open it up here right before this section. Right before you start to enter into the stadium area. That crossover happens, I believe, right here. There it is, right back onto the main racing course, or the Grand Prix portion of the Nürburgring. Side by side, Ian Bertolucci, Matt Zepka, giving each other plenty of room through the turn, but Ian gonna fall right back behind Zepka here for the time being. Zepka trying to keep up the pace here, the momentum. Dave Hernandez finding a little wider of a line than he probably would have liked there. David trying to stay right on the tail of Kurt Smith here as close as he can. The two sister teams, breakfast for dinner and second breakfast, having 2 drivers getting a chance to kind of fight with one another. Little bit of a friendly bout here for the 11th place position as Ian Bertolucci sits in that 10th place spot just up ahead of him. Currently the only driver preventing them from getting to the inside of the top 10, and it gets worse as right as they are about to enter the long portion of this track. My, oh my. Kurt Smith and David Bauer. Holy moly. Now, unfortunately, folks, because of the way we're doing this broadcast here today, doing live replays isn't necessarily possible at the moment. At least I can go back and watch a replay, but in order to go back to where we are in the race right now requires a bit of movie magic, and unfortunately doing this live doesn't allow me to do that quite the way we would like, but kind of have to make compromises, unfortunately, at the moment. So we're going to have to make do and continue on with the action that we have unfolding here at the Nürburgring. As James Carr continues to fend off Dan McFarlane. About 0.2 of a second separating these two drivers at the moment, and James Carr looking looking comfortable, looking confident. Trying to get in on some of the action up here as well. Micah Hendricks also joining in on the fun. As I mean, it is just... Dan McFarlane trying to find any kind of room he can, any opportunity here. And I mean, on a track as big as the Nürburgring, there's going to always be at least one place, one opportunity to make a passing attempt happen. Dan just continues to stay right on the heel of Carr. What I'm curious about here is just how close he's able to get here in some situations. Riding on the nose of the 23 machine, just kind of getting a good look at how close he's able to get to the rear end of James Carr. It also gives you a really good look, too, at how this track kind of looks from the ground. All the bumps and curves and turns. Watching now as Randy Ayers, Trevor Lambert start to close in on one another. And both drivers here, teammates for Seattle iRacing, sitting in the 16th and 17th place positions at the moment. So on a track like this, I mean, you really, I don't think you really can expect too much other than just staying consistent and staying steady. But for both of these guys, Randy Ayers up 10 spots and Trevor Lambert up 6 spots. Now, can also be attributed to the fact that some drivers, a few drivers didn't start the race. Or actually, no, I take that back. Some drivers started the race but were not able to stay out because of various incidents. David Bauer retiring from the race early, Kurt Smith retiring, Eric Statzer, Zach Perry, Auguste Blondel, just to name a few. And you know, the Nürburgring, not a forgiving track in the slightest. And with a grid of this size, I think it's kind of it's almost expected that something like that would happen. It's unfortunate to have it happen in the very beginning of the race, but I guess if as a driver you would rather it be then rather than right in the middle or right at the end when you can see the finish line. And yeah, there's definitely going to be some drivers that are leaving tonight or have left already that or they're going to be hoping for a better race next week, and I'm sure that we will get to see it for them. James Carr, Dan McFarlane, they continue that battle for first, and really is just surprising to see how all three of these drivers, James Carr, Dan McFarlane, Logan McKenzie, I mean, they're staying within 0.3 of a second of each other here at the moment, and able to keep that pace up even throughout the 150-plus turns that we have here and are facing. Not an easy task to overcome, and definitely an easy one to really mess up. I mean, you know, it's a lot of turns to memorize. It's a lot of braking points and a lot of pressure that's being put on you, around you, and it's a lot of things that drivers have to manage here tonight. And I think this is the pinnacle of testing their abilities here in the Alpha Touring Challenge. And I think James Carr, Dan McFarlane, Logan McKenzie, Micah Hendricks, Francois Schenck, I mean, ultimately, you know, all the drivers that are out here racing and have put in the effort here and have tried to start this race, and even if they weren't able to stay out because of, well, various reasons, you know, this is not a track for the weary. And so I commend every single one of these drivers who's come out here tonight and gave it even a chance at the very least. Watching now is John Lazan, Brian Saab. A loose battle for that 11th place position at the moment, and we'll see if, as they enter into the long bit of the Nürburgring, if either Brian or John or either one of these guys are going to be able to either close the distance or increase it. And all it takes is one turn to make a big difference. Randy Ayers, Trevor Lambert-Lee, they continue to trail along here. Dan McFarlane, James Carr, Logan McKenzie remain in that top three groove. Just really, I think ultimately the mindset for these guys is just click off laps. I mean, Dan is definitely looking for a passing opportunity here for Team Sim Racing Grid. Try and get up there and get a lead spot. He's definitely got the pace to be able to do so, but the thing is as well, on the flip side, is that James Carr also has to keep the pace with him if he does take that position. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for both of these drivers. You know, it's going to be an all-out knife fight between these guys. So one thing I do actually want to look at here is looking at the lap difference here between both James Carr and Dan McFarlane. Now, if you see no lap time for for lap 3 through 5. It might be and probably is because the drivers went off track somewhere and it was enough to invalidate their time, and so that time doesn't count. And so in iRacing, it won't even save the time for you. Well, it does, actually. I'm actually not 100% certain why it's not showing the time. Normally it should, even if it does invalidate the time. Regardless, we can see... Wait a second. Ah, I see what the issue is. Go ahead and fix that real quick. For some reason, it's still showing 6 laps. Okay, whatever. That doesn't seem to be working for us. Maybe our sector times will. That works. Kind of. So there we can get a rough idea of just kind of the give and take that's being kind of displayed between these two drivers. And better yet, actually, what we can do one better than that. I guess kind of better. Needless to say, we can see the difference, the battle for first. James Carr, how he's moved up that one spot into first, and he has yet to be dropped from it. Dan McFarlane losing that lead spot, and Logan McKenzie just kind of hanging out there in third, waiting for an opportunity to get up there and seek a first place spot for himself. And I think for Logan McKenzie, he's in the best spot as far as, being able to take the lead if something were to happen, up ahead. Obviously, for obvious reasons. I mean, he is right there. If something does happen, he's going to be able to just swoop right in and take that position. Now, that is assuming that something doesn't happen to the point where James Carr or Dan McFarlane, come back onto the racing service and collide with him, whatever the case might be. Obviously, these things can and sometimes do happen. But with the level of experience that we have here amongst these three drivers, I don't think it'll be much of an issue here. As they get this nice, long straight. Looking just a little further back, we can see Francois Schink and Raymond 2 duking it out. But meanwhile, up ahead, Dan McFarlane takes the lead and gets out ahead of James Carr, just barely enough to take that one spot. He's now fighting to get some distance between himself and these drivers. As there goes James Carr down into pit road. 26 minutes in, only 4 laps around the Nürburgring is all it takes for a driver to want to take it down pit road and get a fresh set, as well as fill up on fuel. And as we are watching along with Randy Ayers and Trevor Lambert, Trevor's going to make his way down into pit road. But one thing I do want to point out here is that we've had more drivers start to find their way out of the race. Looks to be Brian Saab might be one of them. John Lazan potentially could be another. Watching the battle for fourth here between Francois Schenk and Raymond 2. While things are relatively quiet at the moment, while Raymond 2 tries to reel in Francois Schenk here, let's take a moment. I just want to listen to the sights and sounds here at the Nürburgring and just appreciate the action that is developing here between Raymond and Francois. Raymond doing a fantastic job of staying on the tail of Francois. What's more curious as well is when these drivers are going to decide to make their way down into pit road. Now that we've surpassed the halfway mark in this race, I can't imagine that even with the tires that these drivers have, that here at the Nürburgring they can take too much abuse here. Taking a look out the rear view of Francois Schenk's 18 Audi. Just to see how close Raymond 2 is able to get here in certain areas. Raymond doing a great job again of staying right on the tail of Francois, not letting him get away from him. And like I've said in broadcast past, you know, I personally like to have someone to chase with when I'm racing. It helps me keep my pace up and kind of gives me an objective, a goal to kind of to chase after, I guess you could say. Whereas when I'm racing by myself, it sometimes it can be quite easy to get a little complacent, and that pace really starts to diminish a little bit. But in a track like the Nürburgring, I think some drivers might not mind that nearly as much, you know, able to kind of just put your head down and just focus on clicking off laps. Some situations you really, you know, you can find yourself with enough time between yourself and the rest of the pack that, again, you can just not worry too much about pace and, well, not worry too much about trying to increase the gap between yourself and other drivers, but more so on just staying consistent and keeping yourself in the race, because like we've seen already, it's very, very easy to put yourself out of a very difficult race here at the Nürburgring. For a moment, I couldn't even see Raymond behind Francois, as he is right on the tail. Getting ready to head back onto the main racing surface, and I would have to imagine, as we see Dan McFarlane, Logan McKenzie make their way down into pit road, that these guys, right on cue, going to make that same decision. And get that pit stop done and over with, and get back out there on a fresh set of tires as well as fuel, or it looks like maybe actually just fuel. So drivers filling up the tank and now getting back out onto the track. With a little less than 25 minutes left to go. And as drivers make their way back out onto the track, they're going to see a little bit of separation now, a little bit more of a separation than they did before. Mike De Almeida, Connor Acatella, two teammates, they find themselves with about a second separating themselves at the moment. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit of an interesting game of cat and mouse between a lot of this field here as they get back into it and focus in on closing off these last, realistically, I think probably about 3 laps. 2-3 laps, something in that neighborhood. So Logan McKenzie, now your race leader. That puts James Carr, Dan McFarlane in your second and third place positions, respectively. And Logan McKenzie looking to increase upon the roughly 3-second gap that he currently has. But James Carr looking quite good pace-wise. As he potentially starts to look to reel in that 04 machine. Going a little off track there for just a moment, keeping things as clean as he possibly can here. Roughly 0.3 of a second separating these two drivers, and Dan really trying to push it to the tail end of James Carr. McFarlane doing an absolutely impressive job here. And James, I mean, he is doing everything he can as well to try and prevent Dan from getting around him. I mean, any chance that Dan has to get up right next to him, sneak to the inside, whatever the case might be, James is very quick to shake that car up and try and make it as difficult as possible as he can. Randy Ayers finds himself in a bit of trouble. And that front end not looking too great here. Yeah, that 111 machine is definitely hurting. You can see some sparks being thrown from the bottom end of that car. Oh, that front wheel. I didn't even notice that at first, but yeah, that front driver's side wheel is definitely dragging along with them, and yeah, gosh. Well, nobody said that Nürburgring was going to be easy, and I think drivers were very well aware of the difficulties and the challenges coming into tonight's race. Mike De Almeida, Connor Roccatella, side by side. Mike's able to get out in front, or Connor's able to get out in front of Mike into that 7th place position. Both the Yellow Flag Motorsport drivers having a little bit of friendly competition here. Both Connor and Mike looking very, very smooth here through the stadium portion of the track. As we're just seeing a massive spread around this field now. I mean, drivers are just all over the track at this point. It's fair to say if you find yourself alone on the track, you might be in that situation for quite some time. And I think for the drivers that are in a battle kind of situation, I don't know if I would say grateful for it, but I would say probably at least glad that someone else is in sight of them. On a track as large as the Nürburgring, it's very easy to find yourself just in your own little pocket of the racetrack. Taking a moment to ride on board with Connor Roccatello there for just a little bit. Appreciate some of the sights and sounds here at the Nürburgring. Tuning back into the action for second place, involving Dan McFarlane and James Carr. These two drivers inside the top three for quite some time. James Carr starting in that second place spot, sitting in third at the moment. And Dan McFarlane initially starting in first, back in that second place spot. And Logan McKenzie, the man of the hour at the moment, with sitting in that first place spot, starting off in third. But right now, as it sits, the current hard charger of the race is Randy Ayers, and obviously for a lot of reasons, being a good chunk of the field has found themselves out of the race here. That has allowed for drivers to be able to get some positions to work their way up the field, get them some extra points. Not always how drivers want to get those points, but hey, it's, you know, if they're given to you, why not take them? I just absolutely love the sound of those cars just grinding themselves across the ground as they go through the bowl there. That is just incredible. Oh, whoa, James Carr. Hasn't had very many of those moments here, but James finding himself in the grass there for a moment. And a good recovery, but that's also going to really kind of spread this field out to the point where there are no battles on the track at the moment that are under a second. So everyone has developed enough distance between themselves that they have a little bit of wiggle room to work with, but not much. So as drivers come across the line, that will be the white flag being waved in technical terms here, as With about 4 minutes left to go, lap time's about 8, almost 9 minutes. This will be the last opportunity for drivers, and at this point, it is just one long lap of putting your head down and just get through it. That is going to be the name of the game for drivers as they look to finish this one out. So at this point in the race, Logan McKenzie is your race leader and has been for some time, followed by Dan McFarlane in second place, James Carr in third, Micah Hendricks in fourth, Raymond 2 in that fifth place position. It is a long, long road to the end here for these drivers, but it is all just a matter of staying focused and staying consistent. And I think a lot of these drivers have done a very, very good job of keeping their momentum up here in these last these last couple laps that we've seen. So everyone's done a fantastic job here with now surpassing the time limit here in today's race. It's all just a matter of staying calm, cool, collected here to finish it out. And for Logan McKenzie, as he comes out of the final turn and onto the front straight, across the checkered line, he takes it here for the win at the Nürburgring, round number 5. The Alpha Touring Challenge. Dan McFarlane just behind him to come away with second. James Carr in third. Followed shortly by Micah Hendricks in fourth. Raymond 2 in that fifth place position. Francois Schink, Mike De Almeida all following suit behind them. Just the last few remaining drivers out on the track, just waiting to click off their last few laps, and I'm sure for them, they are just eagerly awaiting to see the finish line here, as I know I certainly would be. In a race like this, it is definitely a true challenge for every driver involved. Randy Ayers coming out of the final turn, and he's going to take it across the line for 16th. So we see Dave Hernandez getting ready to do more of the same here for that 17th place position. You can see Kevin Clark just a little further back. And it looks like actually we are going to be cut short. That is going to conclude our action here tonight. So, folks, I want to thank each and every single one of you who's tuned in here tonight and enjoyed the action here with us. As always, my name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you all the action here today. And here are the post-race results on your screens. We can run through them real quickly as well. Logan McKenzie coming away with the win. Dan McFarlane in second. James Carr in third. Micah Hendricks in fourth. Raymond 2 coming away with that fifth place position. Francois Schink in sixth. Mike De Almeida in seventh. Connor Roccatella in eighth place. Ian Bertolucci in ninth. Matt Zepka in 10th. Luke Philippone in 11th. Christian Ost in 12th. Mark Darnell in 13th. Trevor Lambert coming away in 14th. Damon Mitchell in 15th. Randy Ayers in that 16th place spot. Dave Hernandez in 17th. And Kevin Clark coming away in that 18th position. Brian Sohn 19th. Brian Saab 20th. John Lazan in 21st. Kurt Smith in 22nd. David Bauer in 23rd. Eric Statzer in 24th. Zach Perry in 25th. And Gus Blondel coming away in 26th here today. Folks, that is going to conclude our coverage here today of round number 5 of the Alpha Touring Challenge here at the Nürburgring. As always, my name is Mason Heimball, bringing you the action with Team Goon Squad. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And we will be back for more of the same action next week for round number 7. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Borcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that. There's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's. Possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.